Ignite to impact.
Have you heard about imposter syndrome? Well, if you haven't, you may be suffering from it and not even know. We're going to be talking in today's conversation about that imposter syndrome phenomena and ways that you can defeat it forever. How are you? I'm Dr. Geneva. For those of you I haven't met yet, whether you're live with us on the replay, hope you're doing great. Welcome to Ignite to Impact Live, the best place ever for conversations about leadership, making a difference, making extraordinary change in your life. And for the past several weeks, we've been talking about this phenomena called Imposter Syndrome. It shows up sometimes when you least expect it, but it's there. And oftentimes we're not aware of it. But did you know that studies say that close to 80% of us will have it, experience it, and if you haven't yet, it's highly likely that you will. So I really got interested in this topic because imposter syndrome is often defined as these feelings of self-doubt, unease, that you're not good enough. And the work that I do is I work with women and men and executives and entrepreneurs is all about promoting and enhancing that confidence, those activities, those strategies that make sure that you look good, feel good, and do good at any age. So when I became aware of this phenomena, I got really interested in it. I wanted to find out more about it. And I wanted to, of course, find those tips, strategies, advice, all those things that could overcome this self-doubt, because as it's defined, it's a crippling self-doubt that keeps you uneasy, anxious. It shows up in the workplace and can really get in the way of you being productive, efficient, and living your best life. So over the past 2 weeks, we've looked at and defined what is imposter syndrome. And then we also had a focus on how imposter syndrome shows up at the workplace and how and what's its relationship with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which everybody is talking about these days. And certainly corporations and employers are trying to figure out ways they can become more diverse and more inclusive. So up pops this imposter syndrome, and it plays a role because if so many of us, men and women, in fact, are either experiencing imposter syndrome or will, it's sure enough going to be in the workplace. So as we're talking about being more inclusive, being more diverse, we've got to talk also about imposter syndrome. So let me just give a quick summary of what we've discovered so far in our 2 sessions and what we've talked about. Again, lack of self-confidence, this crippling self-doubt, this unease, this feeling that you're not good enough, showing up at work, in your life, with your family is oftentimes coined as imposter syndrome, a label that came up, and it is a label, we got these labels. Okay. So I want to just tell you, it's a label that showed up in the late 70s, coined by 2 psychologists. And I'm going to tell you, I was not aware of the term, though I certainly have experienced the feelings of unease and sometimes I ain't good enough and why am I here? I believe that imposter syndrome has 2 faces. One that is internal, how you believe, the thoughts you say, the thoughts you tell yourself, and therefore what you can do about it yourself. And the other face is that external world. And there oftentimes are people and systems in the external world that are saying to you, you ain't good enough, or you too young, or why are you here, or questioning your capability. Oftentimes, those are the isms, the racism, the sexism, the ageism. So we have got to recognize that there are external forces out there that are telling us, because of our age, because of our gender, because of who we love or like, that we aren't good enough and we don't belong. So there's this two-sided face of imposter syndrome. And we've been talking about both sides and how to deal with both sides. And I want you to also recognize that sometimes that imposter syndrome shows up as physical symptoms as well. The sweats and the nervous hand shaking and the dry mouth, because there's this feelings of doubt and, I really don't know what it is that I'm talking about. And somebody's going to discover, in fact, that I'm a fraud and I really don't belong here. So we spent a lot of time kind of defining those various circumstances and how, imposter syndrome exhibits itself. And then we talked specifically about what happens in the workplace, diversity, equity, inclusion, and how that plays in it. And I think just the bottom line of that is that, we recognize that diversity, equity, inclusion is a process. It's not affirmative action, which was more a checking the numbers. But this really is a process. And employers and corporations in the workplace need to have programs and processes, in fact, to make sure that the workplace is more diverse, is inclusive. And when imposter syndrome shows up at the workplace, either in performance appraisals or how you work with others or colleagues, there has to be some kind of solutions to that. And so it's been some great conversation. There's lots of other stuff we talked. If you want to catch up in all of it, the replays are available right here in this spot, and you can jump in and dive into that conversation. So what I wanted to do today was, since we spent time talking the defining imposter syndrome and then talking, sharing experiences about how it shows up in the workplace, today I want to focus on solutions. So how we can overcome imposter syndrome as individuals and as employers. So again, back to this, kind of two sides of imposter syndrome. And joining me again today in having this conversation, well, she's really no longer a special guest. She is a friend, a part of the Ignite to Impact Live family. We're going to welcome Therese Peace Agbo, who, as you know, is Vice President of Talent and Culture at Kirko. And she's had 25 years plus leadership experience and has served in various senior human resources management roles, very high level experience. She's been a diversity champion. She has her own company. She's held senior leadership positions in corporations at AAA, and she's had a career at Comerica Bank, again, as a vice president and corporate learning director. So she has an extensive experience in talent recruiting, training, development, culture, and all kinds of things, that so much so that Corp magazine identified her as a diversity business leader and as a leader in diversity and inclusion. And so I'm just so delighted. She is an attorney as well as all kinds of other accolades. I'm so glad she's here to help us figure out how to defeat imposter syndrome forever. How you doing, Teresa? And welcome.
Well, hello, Dr. Geneva. How are you this morning?
I am doing just great, and thank you for being here with us, helping us through this. So I've given a recap of what we've talked about in our past two sessions.
Yes.
I want your perspective on what were the highlights of those conversations and what would you share with our listening and viewing audience about imposter syndrome that we've discussed so far.
Yeah, I think you did a great job recapping what we've talked about in terms of things being related to not feeling confident in who you are, not feeling like you have a place in your organization, and that whole syndrome of I'm a fraud and I may get discovered, and what that means and what it looks like and how it impacts you mentally, emotionally, and physiologically. I think one of the things I heard you say is, you sometimes get the sweats, or you sometimes just have that feeling of uneasiness. And I think we've all had that at some point. And so it's a matter of being able to recognize it and then combat it. What is it that you want to do to make sure that you can overcome that? Make sure that you are in a position to recognize what's happening. So I think you did a great job of recapping. I think the biggest thing is, one of the things you said is a label. We have the label of imposter syndrome. And so I would think about not labeling yourself. That's what I would think about.
Okay. And so what do you mean? So not calling yourself an imposter. Is that what you mean when you say labeling?
That's correct. Not calling yourself an imposter. So recognizing that, yes, something, I have a situation, it's this. Okay, so I recognize what it is, but I can move beyond that label now. I don't need to keep that label. Now I just need to figure out how to combat it, how to move forward, how to, and everything in life to me is about moving forward. It's not being stuck.
Okay. So, Therese, you've had years of executive coaching experience, which means that you've given advice and strategies to people who are in executive roles in corporations and in other organizations. What are some of the challenges that they come to you with, and what kind of advice and solutions do you give them?
I think, we talked a little bit about this, or we did talk about it last week. One of the challenges is there's no one at the table that looks like you. You are oftentimes the one in the room, or you oftentimes don't feel like you have support within your organization. And so when that happens, you feel alone, and you will sometimes withdraw. You will back down. You may not speak up. And so therefore, you're not visible. And you get ahead by being visible. You don't get ahead by being under the radar. And so, it's advice I give my clients is you need to be visible. You don't hide under the radar. You have to get out there. You have to work with others. You have to figure out how to build those relationships so that you can be successful in your career, because it's all about relationships.
So that networking and connecting, I'm often asked by people, well, how do you network? Do you have any tips or advice for networking?
I do. One of the things is when you want to meet someone, or we're in COVID now, but you could go to an event, but even now you can reach out to someone and, be curious about who they are. People oftentimes like to talk about themselves. So be curious about who they are. Ask them questions. Ask them about their career. Ask them how they got there. Ask them, what was important to them. What are some of the things that they would suggest or recommend? It's about having a conversation. We think about networking as sometimes being something negative, or being the used car salesman. And that's really not what it is. It's about building relationships. So it's about being curious about other individuals and reaching out to them. Because the thing is, you want your network in place before you need them. You don't want to try to build a network when you need them. At that point, it's too late. And so it's reaching out to others, it's having a conversation, it's being curious. And those are all things that also help people to be successful in careers. Curiosity is huge. And so the more curious you are, the more it helps you to grow and gives you that growth mindset. And you can do the same thing when you're networking.
Wonderful. And this curiosity, that's an excellent leadership technique.
It is.
How you can, connect with others and finding out. And of course, people like to talk about themselves.
That's right.
And so when you ask questions, then when you ask questions of other people, they see that you're interested in them.
That's right. That's right. And then they take an interest in you. So again, it's about building the relationship, building the network, people take an interest in you because you've taken an interest in them. It's again, relationships, so key.
Mm-hmm. And building relationships is one of the strategies or solutions to overcoming imposter syndrome, or helping to do that, because you're engaging in conversations, hearing about others, putting the focus on others and having it less on yourself. Would you agree? Or how does that work, this building relationships, help with defeating imposter syndrome?
I think there's a couple of ways. So, and it's about your network, it's about relationships. One is, I think that having a mentor is important.
Okay.
And especially when you're in an organization and you feel like you don't have that level of support. So having a mentor, and that mentor can be an internal mentor that has some direct relationship with your performance, or it can be an external mentor that has been successful in their career that can help give you some advice and guide you. And a mentoring relationship is just that. It's a relationship that gives you that advice, that helps to guide you. You could also you need a sponsor. I think everyone needs a sponsor. And that sponsor is someone that's internal to your organization, that has influence within your organization, and they are your advocate when you're not in the room. They can speak for you. They can talk about what you've done, how you do it, the work you've contributed, your successes. So you need that sponsor. The other thing I think you need is a board of directors. I think that everybody should have their own board of directors, and that board of directors can be, find 3 to 5 people that you respect and ask them to be on your board. And, you have a quarterly board meeting and you talk about what's going on with your career and you get advice from them, and help them let them help guide and direct you in the things that you're doing or you're thinking about. They can also help with your network. They have a network, so they can increase your network. So therefore your network grows exponentially just by having that board of directors. The other thing is, you talk about network, but a coach is a network. So you may seek out a coach. And if you seek out a coach, you just make sure your coach is a good fit for you. Everyone's not a good fit. And so it's important that you and your coach have chemistry, that you understand each other, that you build a relationship. And so seeking out that coach may also be a way. So there's a lot of ways to leverage your network and who's in your network that will help you to overcome this.
And these building relationships are so key to, overcoming those feelings of unease and anxiety and self-doubt about who you are and what you can bring to the table. So you've talked about having a mentor, someone who can advise and help you in what you're doing. And that sponsor, I love that. Someone who can, open doors for you.
That's right.
Who can talk about you in a positive way when you're not in the room.
That's right.
In other words, talk to other people so that, your expertise can be leveraged by others. That's, that third party endorsement. That's a great one. And then this board of directors or advisors, people who can, give you, be a sounding board. And I do believe Therese, on your board of directors, you need folk who, who are cheerleaders and supporters. I think you also need people who, maybe ain't going to be your cheerleader at every single thing, but are going to give you honest, direct feedback and be able to tell you when you ain't doing things right.
That's right. That's exactly right. You also need people that don't look like you. So you need some that look like you, and you need some that don't look like you, because we all have different experiences. And so we bring those experiences to the table, and we bring them to the table based on what we've lived and who's in our network and how we operate. And everyone operates differently. Groups, cliques, all those, they operate differently. So you need someone that understands all of those dynamics. And that's why a diverse board of directors is as important as a diverse culture in an organization.
Right. And we can do that diversity, equity, inclusion ourselves personally.
That's right.
That is magnificent. Right. Yes. And then the idea of a coach. Say a little bit more about what a coach can do for you as you're in the throes of or suffering from imposter syndrome.
Well, a coach, first of all, helps you identify what it is and where those gaps may be, and then a coach partners with you on ways for you to move forward. They brainstorm with you in some cases. In some cases, they're just working with you to help you identify what will help you down that road of success or that path of success. So it's really bringing out the inner you and what's within you. It is not, coaching's not therapy. Oftentimes people think that coaching is therapy. It is not therapy. So don't think of coaching and therapy as one and the same. Therapy is just that, you're dealing with all kinds of things in your unconscious and all those things. That's not coaching. Coaching is the here and now. Let's talk about strategies and techniques that help you to be successful in the environment in which you work, in the environment, in the way that you work, the way that to help you be the best authentic self, I guess is the way that I want to say it, to help you to be the best authentic self, because people know when you're not genuine. They sense that, they feel that. And so a coach's role is to help you be your best authentic self.
And again, when we talk about solutions to defeating imposter syndrome, that's an important one. That is learning how to be your best self, your most authentic self, and practicing and talking that positive, encouraging, supporting self-talk, that talk that's in your head. Good talk that's in your head.
Right. It's focusing on the good talk, and it's helping to combat the negative talk, that little voice in your head that's getting in the way from you doing all the things you break. That's right.
That's
you need to learn how to shut that voice off.
Shut that bad boy off.
Shut it off.
make sure it doesn't, good self-talk. That's
right.
That's right.
Positive self-talk.
Yes. So we're building this list of solutions to defeat and overcome imposter syndrome. So let's say I'm at my workplace and I'm in this big time meeting, and I look around the table, and there probably aren't too many people who look like me, but I need to be able to perform and to do my best as an employee.
Yes.
But I'm feeling, I'm sitting there wondering, what am I doing here? Are people around here gonna think that I don't know what it is? Though really how I got there was because I knew stuff, but that's not what I'm thinking right now.
That's right.
My palms are maybe a little sweaty. What advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Preparation. Preparation is the key. When you're going to a meeting, you need to prepare. We want to just show up, and you can't always just show up. You need to prepare. You need to know what the topic is. You need to know, what the thoughts are. You need to know who the thought leaders or the influencers are in the room. So you need to prepare. You don't just walk into a meeting cold. And so if you understand who the influencers are, then you need to have built relationships with them. If you're new, then it takes time to do that, but you start working towards building those relationships. So preparation to me is key. If you're prepared, you don't feel as awkward or as reluctant to speak up. When you're not prepared, you are reluctant to speak up because you just haven't thought about it. We as individuals, we're introverts, we're extroverts. Introverts process internally, extroverts process externally. Like for me, I'm an extrovert, so I can talk and talk and talk, and I can talk myself into a conclusion or out of a conclusion. But an extrovert needs to think about that ahead of time. And so an extrovert and an introvert needs time to process it, maybe away. So that's where preparation comes in. So regardless whether you're an extrovert, an introvert, if you process internally, externally, you need to prepare for whatever situation you're going into. If you're making a presentation, you need to prepare. If you're going to a meeting, you need to prepare. You need to know what the topic is. You need to know what idea is trying to be pushed forward so that you know whether or not you want to support that or you don't support it. And you need to speak up. So you have to have your voice heard. Don't go to a meeting and sit in silence and no one ever hear your voice. If they never hear your voice, they're not going to know who you are. So
I love it.
Speak up. You have to be willing to speak up.
Yes. And so Zandra, how are you? Good morning. She says this advice is priceless. Thank you both. Well, we thank you for being here and joining in on the conversation. And we love hearing from you. And so preparation, being prepared. And Therese, going into those situations, you don't have to spend because when people think about preparing, they often think it's got to be a long, drawn out process, but you can get to the point where you can just run it through your head.
That's right.
And you could do things like, okay, what's the purpose of this meeting?
That's right.
You can think about, well, if the meeting were over and it was a successful meeting for me, what happened? What did I do? And so you can imagine that. So think about what you want the result of this meeting to be, this activity, this event. And then what do you have to do in order for it to be successful? And you can run that through your head. I love this preparation, but just don't go in off the cuff. Just walk right on in and say, well, I'm here, and lean back and say, all right, what's going to happen? Because it just doesn't work that way if you want to be successful. I love that. And then also this gem you dropped about understanding who the influencers are. Yes. So you need to understand the dynamics, the social, the political, because in every workplace, right, they exist, right, Therese?
Everywhere. Every organization has a political structure. And it is important that you understand what that structure is. Who are those key players? Who are the stakeholders? Without understanding that, it becomes very difficult for you to be successful. And it's navigating the internal politics. And so, sometimes it's hierarchical. Sometimes it's you have informal influencers and stakeholders. They may not even have the titles, but they're the ones that can be making decisions behind the scenes. You as an individual, it's important that you understand that and you navigate those politics. It's a game. And so it's about being able to play the game successfully.
Playing the game. That's right. Knowing the rules, the techniques, and making your own rules and techniques and et cetera, that navigating social and political dynamics at the workplace. Hey, that's a webinar you and I should do. I mean, I love that topic. If y'all are interested in that topic, let us know in the comments. You also talked about speaking up. And I believe that, and something that I know I've done, and I'd like your views on this, Therese. But as I was coming through my career, I still do it now, but particularly in the early stages of my career, I would find a way. I would go into every meeting saying, I'm going to say something. And a lot of times before going in the meeting, I'd figure out what it would be. Okay. And I'd practice. I'd have to practice because sometimes it'd be scary because I'd walk in that room and there was nobody there who looked like me. Nobody.
That's right.
I mean, and who wasn't my age either.
That's right.
Everybody was older and so-called more experienced. I found out, as I went along that I brought just as much, if not more, to the table. But that's a process. You got to get to that. But the thing is, and Kalina says, yes, a great topic to consider. Okay, so Therese, we may have to do that topic. But I would say to myself, I'd make a commitment. I'm not going to leave the room without speaking up. Someone needs to hear my voice. What advice would you give about that? Is that something that folk can do? And how do you prepare for that, for speaking up?
Just what I think you gave the tip, Dr. Geneva. That's it.
Okay.
No, really, that's it. You decide you're going to say something in a meeting, and you decide that you have an opinion one way or the other. And what's that opinion? And then what is the point that you want to get across in regards to that? And you make a choice that you're going to say something at every meeting. Now, don't be the obnoxious person that has something to say about every single thing. Pick your point, make it relevant and make it impactful. But decide, I'm not leaving until the quote is, I'm not leaving the room until I speak up. Make a decision that every meeting I go to, they're going to hear my voice. They're going to know who I am, and they're going to know what I believe in, because part of that is, in order for someone to support you, they have to understand what you're thinking, what you believe in, and they want to be able then to support that. They want to know that you're processing information, that you can process it, you can make the connection, and then you can help make a sound decision. That's what they're looking for, and your speaking up helps them to be able to make that decision on your behalf. That yes, that person gets it, that person understands. I can now support that person because I know that their thinking is aligned with the direction that we want to go as an organization. Their thinking supports us moving forward. Their thinking supports change in our organization, whatever that may be, but they want to know how you're thinking.
Yes. And again, back to that, preparing. And prepare yourself for that.
That's
okay,
right.
So Therese, so we've got about another 10 minutes or so, and I want to make sure that we've gotten, I know you have such great advice. I want to make sure that we get those nuggets out. So why don't we do it this way?
Okay.
What are the so we built a whole list about how you can defeat imposter syndrome. So what haven't we talked about?
I think that we've talked about your network, which is key. We've talked about not labeling yourself and making sure that you're prepared and speaking up. I think the other thing is I would talk about, as an individual, visualize your success. Think about where you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to show up. Visualize that, and then think about what steps it takes for you to become that. And so what does that look like? Think about where you want to be. So visualize your success. I remember when I was in law school, and I didn't go to law school right out of undergrad. I went to law school while I was working at Comerica Bank. And I just remember one year I was really tired, and I said that to my mother. My mother said, visualize yourself walking across that stage. Don't focus on all this other stuff. Visualize getting across that stage, getting that diploma, and becoming an attorney. That's what you focus on. And that's what I did. When I would dream, when I would think about it, I could see myself walking across that stage. That helped me. And so visualize who you want to be, visualize how you want to be and how you want to show up. I think that's important. You know, we've also talked about, you know, quieting that voice in your head. You need to really think positive thoughts about yourself, who you are, and what you have in terms of who you are and competency and what you bring to the table.
Yes.
And
I see that Zandra is asking a question of, oh, here's a good one. So Therese, Zandra is asking, how do you navigate the jealous boss who tears you and your ideas down? Yet you have funneled ideas through others and they are received as great, and that this can lead to imposter syndrome. Did we lose Therese? Oh my goodness. I think we might have.
you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you. But we're going to,
it says, I don't know what it says.
Well, we want to hear your voice.
So I'm going to go back to Zandra's question. How do you navigate that jealous boss? One is you will need to, with that person, you need to figure out what their agenda is. Because again, this goes back to understanding people, who they are, and navigating a relationship. And so understand what their agenda is and try to influence them based on what their agenda is, and trying to build that relationship. And then the other part of that is, that's why you need other allies in the workplace. We don't always have the best boss or the most positive boss, but we can have other allies in the workplace. And so that's where networking and building your relationship becomes really important. And so if you can build that relationship, if you can build it with others, they become your supporter. That's where that sponsor also comes in. That sponsor, again, the advocate when you're not in the room. So your boss may be in the room, you're not in the room, your sponsor can help navigate that.
Excellent, excellent. And Kiana also says, focus on the positive and the actions you're taking. And Zandra, I would just add, I thought, you know, what Therese gave us was some excellent responses. I would also just again emphasize that, you know, again, know who you are and what your purpose is and what you want to try to get. And then, you know, here she is back again, Therese, you know, I always believe in exit strategy.
Yeah.
So that you, when you talk about being prepared, that any situation I go in, new job, new opportunity, etc., I'm so excited. I'm going to be my best. I'm going to do. And I'm also thinking, how do I want to leave here? You know, what's my exit strategy? And, you know, that's an okay thing. What's my succession plan? And I've used that as I've led organizations and look at employees who are in the workplace, because I think the same about them in terms of succession. If I move on, who do I want to bring up in the organization? What's the talent I want to do? So I make it into a very positive, important aspect of what it is that I do. So I would think too, Zandra, that, you know, having your exit strategy in mind also kind of keeps you sane too, and kind of levels it out. At least I know it has for me. What do you think, Therese?
Yeah. I think it gives you a feeling of power versus being powerless. If you know you have a plan, and you should always have plan A, plan B. And if you have a plan, you feel more empowered, which also helps you not to feel like you're the imposter. You're empowered. You can start to work on where you want to go next, what you want to do. But I'm going to go back to that network. That's where that network comes in. In order to start moving, be it internally or externally, you want to leverage your network to do that. But I think that's great advice, Dr. Geneva.
Okay, so what else haven't we talked about, or have we covered the main ones? What do you want?
I think we covered the main ones. I will say this: we talked about this in week 1, but really having your list of accomplishments, understanding who you are. Look at your resume. create your own list of accomplishments. Keep those things right, in front of you. Make a list, put a Post-it note on your computer, write down what you've accomplished in the last month, write down what you've accomplished in the last 6 months. That helps remind you of who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yes.
So keep your successes in the forefront of your mind and in the forefront of your view. Out of sight, out of mind. But if we can see it, then we can focus on it. We can think about it. And then again, that helps when that little voice comes, look at that Post-it note and say, no, I did this. No, I'm not taking that today. I did this. I accomplished this. I'm who I am. I'm moving forward. So that list of accomplishments, I think, is really key. It helps just remind you.
And once we do this list, and I absolutely think you're right on with that, where do we put it? I think we should keep it so we can refer to it. Yeah. Where do you mentioned the Post-it?
I put a couple of Post-it notes on your computer, put some Post-it notes in the bathroom, put a list in your phone, keep a list. I'm old school, so I still carry my little notebook. So I like my notebook. I'm not completely electronic. So I have that list and put it in your notebook. I mean, whatever works for you. You find something that works for you. If you're electronic, put it on your phone or, but it needs to be visible. It should not be hidden, and you need to be able to get to it. And that's why I like Post-it notes. I Post-it notes on a mirror, Post-it notes on a computer. Those are all things that you're going to look at every single day, and in some cases multiple times a day. And so it's a reminder.
Excellent. Okay. And you can also put it in your journal. If you're a journal addict and you want to, you pull out your journal every evening or you write in every morning, you can have it there and flip to it. And, you could start your day with reading all that you've accomplished, all your successes, your talents, your skills, etc. Whatever you put down, you can refresh yourself and start your day with it.
You can. It's a positive affirmation.
Yes,
is absolutely. What it is. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. About yourself.
Yes. About yourself. Yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep.
Well, we just, put down a whole list of things, strategies you can do, and, everything from mentor and getting that sponsor, somebody who can open the door, and a coach who can help you bring out your best you, and networking and establishing relationships and preparation, being prepared. Going into that meeting, having an idea, visualizing how that meeting's going to turn out, visualizing your own success, speaking up every place you can. And I think you talked last time, Therese, about when we enter a room, don't sit in the back.
I did, yes. Don't sit at the table.
Sit at the table. Don't sit along the side. Yeah. If there are rows of chairs, go up in the first few rows.
That's right. That's right.
As a child of the 60s, et cetera, my parents used to it was a thing because Rosa, she did not go to the back of the bus and sit down. Okay. She went to the front of the bus. She didn't go to the back of the bus. So that was a thing among us, that we don't go to the back. You go to the front, and where you walk into a room, Therese, this is another webinar we could give about how do you speak up, show up in a way that exhibits power. How you walk into a room, where you sit, etc. Those are all things that we could do another webinar.
We could do another one on presence. It's all about presence. It's like that's how you show up. Well, your presence. That's exactly right. Yes. I do have one more thing. I'm going to give you one more thing.
Please. Yeah.
We work in these organizations, and you've talked about speaking up and showing up and walking in a room. The other thing is understand how people perceive you. We don't take time to get feedback, but you need to know what people think about you. So ask for some feedback, and then you can adjust accordingly.
Excellent. 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 Okay. Yes. Yes. How you perceive presence.
That's right.
So perception, the presence, being prepared. Those are the three
Three
P's.
P's.
Again, another webinar, the three P's to success in
There we
defeating
go.
imposter
There
syndrome.
we
Hey,
go.
well, we just created three new webinars that we're going to do. And I'm going to have you back again, Therese Peace Ogbo. This has been just phenomenal. We appreciate you. I know Kirko is just blessed and fortunate and all that sort of good stuff to have you as their vice president of talent and culture. Thank you so much for everything. Yes, Lashana, perception is one's reality. And I'm saying again, we're going to do a thing on that because in that, we can find lots of strategies to create extraordinary impact. And that's why we're here on Ignite to Impact. I thank you. Love you so much,
I love
Therese.
you. And thank you, Dr. Geneva. This has been so much fun and hopefully helpful for the audience. So love you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. The feedback you've gotten over these three sessions now has been extraordinary. And so, yes, plenty of value. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to the audience. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for listening and being with us this morning.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. So I hope you've enjoyed these three sessions. Zandra says she's thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much. We, really appreciate each and every one of you. And I know that you probably have solutions, ideas, advice for defeating this imposter syndrome that many of us suffer from or have experienced at one time in our life. And hey, Lauren, thank you so much. This was great information. Thank you. Thank you for being here and, taking part in this. Drop your solutions. We've, just developed a whole list of them. I want to, I got to say that I want you to go visit me on my website, drgenevaspeaks.com. We continue this kind of conversation and lots of conversations about how you can live your best life by creating your best self. And so Ignite to Impact Live and my podcast, which is on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcast, all of your podcast platforms. And we talk about how you can make a difference, how you can make extraordinary impact in your personal, professional, and community life. And defeating imposter syndrome is one way. And since so many of us will experience it or have experienced, it's an important topic, but we don't dwell on that label. Hey, no. We dwell on the advice and tips and strategies. Once we've provided this awareness of it, want you to get to defeating it. And so I'm so delighted that you've joined us, and stay tuned for our next conversation next week. But I want to leave you with some thoughts from Michelle Obama, who talks about imposter syndrome, shares how she suffered from imposter syndrome. And she called it a thing in your head. And her solution was to practice telling yourself it ain't true. She believes that when you practice being in a room, as Therese talked about, when you prepare, when you practice being in that space, what you would do, how you would speak up. These are the ways that you defeat imposter syndrome, and you can do you. And so that is what we really wanted to leave with you. And as Michelle Obama says, it's a thing in your head. Forget it. Practice being you. Practice telling yourself it ain't true. So thank you for being with us today. Hope you got great value. Love you. And we'll see you the next time on Ignite to Impact Live.
Ignite to impact.